Spice or spies?
Give us the overture.
Good evening, Rabbi. We're talking about Parashat Shelach tonight, right? Which is the Parashat Shavua, Parashat Shelach Lecha. So what is it talking about over there? As we said, right, that the whole story of Bamidbar, the whole book of Bamidbar, is all kinds of entanglements, rivalries, politics, all kinds of stuff like this. Why did all of a sudden this appear into the Jewish people? How did it come? All of a sudden, you know why? Because when the Jewish people were slaves in Egypt, so what politics can you have when you're a slave? You're a peasant. You're a pathetic person. What politics? What rivalries? What's there to fight about? You're fighting for your life, so you can breathe, you can eat something, whatever. But once the Jews now became wealthy and they became aristocratic and free, emancipated, now all of a sudden, right? Oh, there's politics, this and that. Who's going to be the president, the vice president, this, right? Everything. There's all kinds of issues going on there. This is the whole thing, right? Once the community becomes prominent, that also brings with it the rivalries, the entanglements, the political issues going on. So we're continuing right with that theme over here as well. That now all of a sudden they come to Moshe Rabbeinu, the people, and they say, you know what? Why can't we send some spies over there to Eretz Israel to spy it out and see what's there? We're going to go in pretty soon. They were supposed to go in any day. This was like imminent. So they said, you know what? Before we go in, you know how it is, right? The rules of engagement. They say you spy out something before you go into the territory. You know what I mean? That's the rules. That's the way it works. We're just like all the other nations, right? That's what we are. Everybody else. Well, what makes us any different than anybody else? So let's go. Let's spy it out. Let's send some people over there, track out the whole thing to see what's going on, what's ahead of us. We have to know what we're dealing with, right? So forth and so on. That's the right way to do it. So Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Hashem, and he asks him. He says, these people, they want to spy out the land. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what he said to Moshe Rabbeinu? He says, listen. Don't ask me. I'm not going to stop you. If you want to spy it out, you can spy it out. What does that mean? There's nothing written in the Torah. You're not allowed to spy out the land. I don't have any rule like that. I never gave you any mitzvah like that in the Torah. Do not spy. Ask Trump about that, right? Trump Tower. They were spying on him over there, right? Yep. That doesn't say in the Torah, do not spy. Whatever. So that's not one of the commandments either, right? So Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you want to go? You can go. What can I do? I have nothing against it. But on the other hand, though, I must tell you that I'm quite disappointed, personally speaking. This is not the legal issue. It's more like, I'm insulted, kind of. You know what I mean? Why am I insulted? Because I told you in the Bible, I told you in the verses, I told you this is a good land, So once I told you it's good, what's there for you to check? You know what I mean? What's going on?
You doubt me.
Right, exactly. You have doubts, what qualms. What doubts do you have? What, you need to see video footage? What do you have to see over there? You have to see geology reports. What surveys? What you got? What do you? If God tells you something is good, it's good.
But that's where it derives. Trust but verify.
Thank you. That's true. When you're dealing with the Russians, that's very true. Reagan said that about the Russians, right? But you're dealing with God. What do you have to verify with God? He created the world. You know what I mean? That's it. So you gotta just trust. You gotta be faithful. See, the truth is that the Torah says one thing to us as the Jewish people. The only thing I ask of the Jewish people, is one thing: to have faith. When God tells you something, believe in it. It's not a joke. That's all I ask you. The rest is up to me. I'll give you blessing. I'll give you assistance. I'll give you everything. But all I ask you to do is one thing: to have fear of God and faith in God. Believe in me, and understand me, and know my ways, and respect my rules. That's all I ask of you. I don't ask you anything else. All the rest is up to me. So these people, they want it to be like everybody else. Oh yeah, let's just do it the regular way. So God says, listen, I'm quite insulted, to be honest with you. Why do you have to now check this whole thing? What's the other for you to check? You should have believed in me, but if you don't, you want to go? Doesn't say thou shalt not spy, right? Does not say anywhere. Doesn't say. Okay, good, fine. You want to go, you can go. The truth is, right, that Moshe Rabbeinu, they say the Chazal in the Midrash, they say that Moshe Rabbeinu actually, once he got wind of this whole situation, he understood something was very, very sour over here. Something was very wrong. He understood. He had Ruach HaKodesh. What does that mean? He knew that there was some kind of plot going on here. There was some kind of conspiracy going on. That's what it was. There was a conspiracy. So what was a conspiracy? Conspiracy was that these spies who wanted to go out and spy out the land, their intention was to foil the whole thing. They wanted to get rid of this whole plan. They wanted to scratch the plan.
Israel?
What they really wanted to do, I'm sorry,
What plan?
to leave, to enter Eretz Israel. They didn't want to go to
They
Eretz
didn't
Israel.
want
Yeah,
to
they
enter
didn't want to go. Yeah, they didn't want to go. They didn't want to go to Eretz Israel.
They're happy
They
where they
wanted
were.
to-
They had their motives for that, right? The question is, by the way, why? You know, the truth is, when you look in the commentaries, they don't really talk about the motivation of these spies. Why they had such a conspiracy like this to foil this whole this plan, this whole issue. Why? For what? What do you have to gain from it, right? The truth is that, throughout the years, I saw two main reasons why it brought down by some commentators about this. You know, one of them is like more like the regular theory. You know, the more
Mainstream.
right, exactly, mainstream theory, exactly right. That's the idea. Right. So what was the mainstream theory? Mainstream theory is like this: these guys were into a power struggle over here. What does that mean? These were leaders of the people. These 12 people that were chosen to go to be the spies. They were not regular people. These were not regular Joe Schmo. We're talking about, top notch, top brass people, right?
From
So
each
they had,
tribe.
right, exactly, for one from each tribe. That's the way it was.
And who
So what are we
chose
talking
them?
about? Yeah, they were chosen by Moshe Rabbeinu.
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. But these were considered to be top notch people. Each one of them, Talmid Chacham, big person, tzaddik and this and that, whatever. So they had position in the community. They were already leaders. So what does that mean? Once a person has a position, you know what he's thinking about, right? He's always thinking about one thing. What is Trump thinking about now? What is Trump thinking about now? How to keep his job. You know what I mean? He's preoccupied with that day and night. How do I get reelected? That's all that bothers him right now. That's all he thinks about all day and night. He's dreaming about this, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. How am I going to win these states? You know what I mean? That's all he thinks about.
It's easy.
Same thing over here, by the way, in the shul. The people who have positions, that's all they think about, to keep their position. Believe me when I tell you, I know what I'm talking about. Not all of them, but yeah, that's the way it is. Believe me when I tell you, I know these people.
Okay, no.
It's a natural thing, by the way. It's normal. You know why? Because when a person gets a position, it gives him a certain opportunity, a certain status, and he doesn't want to lose that anymore. Once you get used to that, it's very hard to give it up. Not everybody's like you, Jimmy. Jimmy's a very humble person. You know what I mean? That's something else. He was willing to give it up. He gave it up, voluntarily gave it up. That's something else. Not everybody's like you. Believe me when I tell you. I wish everybody was like you. You understand? I wish. Yeah, we wish. Yeah.
Rabbi,
All I can tell you, okay, is it's like this. In this country, you gotta get the power. Once you get the power, once you make the money, then you get the power.
That's the
When you
idea.
get the power, that's when you get the win.
Okay,
In
so
this case, it was-
yeah, right. So that's it. They got money. They became wealthy, and now they were looking for power. But
But
now they were
they
looking
have the same
to keep the
power.
power. I'm sorry.
They would have the
So
same
this is the
power.
issue, right? This is the issue now. What goes on over here is like this. These guys were thinking, listen, we have pretty cushy jobs right now. We're like on top-notch people, top brass. Who knows when we go to Eretz Israel, what's going to be? Probably the positions will be realigned. The cabinet is going to be shuffled. Like Trump, you know what he does, right? He's always shuffling his cabinet. These guys were like cabinet guys. You know what I mean? That's the whole idea. Secretary of this, secretary of that, whatever, right? Secretary of state. These were cabinet people. So they were thinking, once we change location, and we're also going to be changing a leader. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was not going to take them in, right? It was Yeshua going to take them in. What does that mean? Once you get a new president, you know how it is, right? He's gonna fire Comey, he's gonna fire McCabe, right? He's gonna fire this guy, fire this guy. That's the way it is. You know what I mean? That's the normal thing. So they were thinking, listen, wow, I bet you if we're gonna shift and go there and get a new leader and this and that, we're gonna be out of a job.
How do you say it?
We're gonna be going.
You change the dwelling place, you change the mazar.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, sure.
Say it in Hebrew.
Shinui makom, shinui mazal. That's right. Yeah, sure. No question about it. So they were thinking, that's it. We're gonna be cooked. They're gonna send us to retirement. We're gonna be has-beens. You know what I mean? Dacha. Like they used to send them in the communists. Dacha's a guy. They send them to dacha. Once they send you on dacha vacation, that's it, right? You're retirement. That's it. Nobody wants to talk to you anymore. Now you go sit over there and play chess with people. Play chess and backgammon. That's all you do all day.
They want the golden parachute.
That's the idea. So Yeah, nothing wrong with it. But once you get that power, it's hard to relinquish. Everybody wants to hold on to their power. You know, believe me, these presidents. You know what's subconsciously what they're thinking? Wow, 8 years is not enough. I wish I could do like 16 or 20. They're always thinking about ways, to prolong, but they can't. The Constitution doesn't allow them.
Oh, no,
You know what I mean? This is one of the good things about America, by the way. They don't allow too much because once you go too much, the corruption starts. Absolute power. All kinds of things.
Absolute power, corruption.
Right, exactly.
Fine.
The founding fathers were smart people, to be honest with you, of this nation. They were smart people. They really were smart.
Thought everything
Yeah,
out.
they thought everything out.
Discussed
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. Balance of power, checks and balances. These were smart people.
Yeah, but the
You know?
term limits didn't
Yeah,
start
no question
with
about it.
Roosevelt.
So Roosevelt, that's what I was about to say.
Roosevelt
I'm sorry?
was the one that started
was
during
a
Roosevelt.
three-term president.
Not in the beginning.
Yeah, that was something probably unusual because it's against
he
it. Yeah,
won 3 terms.
right. They made an
Yeah,
amendment.
they
Yes,
They made a
yes.
law after that.
Law after that because the guy
Sure,
was
sure,
poor.
sure, sure.
That's what they made
But
the
anyway, right. Nevertheless, there's checks and balances. The Supreme Court, the legislation. the judicial. Right. We have the legislative, and we have.
Limits, yeah.
There's all kinds of checks
Wait
and
a second.
balances.
Roosevelt never served three terms. They say that he was so popular
Yeah.
at such a time that he would have served a third term.
He
But
started, during
died.
World War II,
He died, yeah.
He died in the 3rd term.
Interesting.
You
Okay,
said he
whatever.
died in the third term?
Yeah, look it up.
Yeah,
No, I believe
he
you.
died in the 3rd term.
Don't believe us.
Anyway, the point is about that. These guys
Fake news.
were obviously worried for their own hide because they knew what was going to be coming for them.
So let's send
So
him-
therefore, they said, listen, if we're going to go over there, that's it, we're done. The only way for us to preserve our power is to stay around here. Right? Delay it as long as possible. Let's wait a little bit. There's no rush. Once we become 65, Social Security, so then we can go in. You know what I mean? Why rush things? We can stay here. We're having a good time.
Hang out.
Everything is good. We're getting everything for free. No work, right? No labor, no nothing. Oh, we're having such a good time. What's the problem, right? Everything is we get for no effort, effortless life, beautiful life. Miraculous.
And they were still getting the manna and the water and all.
Oh yeah, everything was full service. 5-star hotel.
So
You know what I
that's
mean?
They were afraid of. Why should I give up the free manna?
That's also another thing. Now, there's also another opinion which I heard, right? Which is quoted from a certain book, even though I didn't find it in this book, by the way. That they say that they were also afraid of a different thing. These spies. This is more like I guess, a deeper explanation or explanation which is more like on the righteous side. In other words, it paints them in a more righteous picture. More, right? So what does that mean? They say, right, that what they're really afraid of, these guys, is that once they go into Eretz Israel, they're going to lose their special status, right? The miraculous, right, providence that they're getting over there. This is the idea. They knew once you leave to go to Eretz Israel, you're going to have to start farming, working the land, building a kibbutz, going over there, right, planting, sowing. You got to work. You got to put in a full day, sweat, with the sweat of the brow. You know what I mean? You got to start becoming a normal human being.
Let me ask you another
Yeah.
question. Did they have a choice not to go in?
Well, the truth is that they wanted to foil it by painting a bad picture of the land, scaring them into not going in. That was the idea. You understand? They wanted to pull a coup d'état, right? Like those guys over there, right? Those guys in the FBI, Justice Department, right? Those guys, right? CIA, this
Go amongst all
Brennan,
the
Clapper, these kind of people. They wanted to make a coup. That was the idea. Yeah, that's the idea.
Send them.
So they say, right, that according to this thinking, they were, this was actually something they meant it in a good way. What does that mean? We don't want to lose this miraculous life that we have. This is beautiful. When we go over there, we're gonna have to go down, and become like regular people, laborers, workers,
Joshua, cross the river.
work hard, putting 9-to-5 jobs, all kinds of. Well, no, we have a super life. We're living for free. We're living it up.
In
know what I
that
mean?
case, I give you another point of view, another righteous point of view.
Yeah.
There we have to work. We have no time to study Torah.
Yeah.
Here we study
Yeah,
Torah.
same idea. Yeah, same idea. They were thinking, in other words, let's keep this spiritual power that we have over here, spiritual status. There's two ways of looking at it. I guess they're both true in a sense. But the truth is, to be honest with you, whichever one you choose of these options, they're both very bad in the end. Why is that? Because you're trying to foil God's plans. That's what you're trying to do. His plans, you're trying to foil them. God has plans for you. Why are you trying to change everything? You're trying to, according to your
Don't
intellect.
believe.
You know what I mean? Your intellect trying to weigh things, and try to outtake God. What's it to you? Just follow the plan. Be a simple Jew. Go. Follow the letter of the law. You have to always try to put tricks, go around. This kind of sneaky, blah blah blah. You know how it is, right? Don't try to do these kinds of things. Don't try to pull maneuvers. Let things play out the way God wants them to play out.
Higher the movers.
You will not be able to change God's plan. That's the idea. So why try to change it? So what happened was that they were going with this kind of attitude. So Moshe Rabbeinu was onto that. But he couldn't really say anything. Why? Because this was something that he got from Ruach HaKodesh. He had no evidence that this was the case. So a person who has no evidence, he can't say, these people are guilty. Guilty of what? I didn't do anything yet.
Yeah, but
Wait till I do something, You know what I mean? A person has to play out this world according to the laws of nature. You know what I mean? You can't start playing these, prophetic games. I'm a prophet, I know what your intentions are. How do you know what you saw my direction, how my ears are flapping? How do you know what to
But
have?
it's not the will of God. That's the whole point.
Yeah. So the point is, right, he wanted to play out everything normally, but what he did was, right, he tried to foil their plan, in a more secretive way. Under the table somehow. So what did he do? He went to Yoshua, who was one of the spies.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah, Yoshua. He went to Yoshua and told Yoshua, Yoshua was the disciple of Moshe Rabbeinu, the main disciple.
Sure. Yeah.
This was So he told Yoshua, he said, listen, my friend, let me tell you, things are not looking over very, very good over here. I have some information, from the grapevine. You know what I mean? I have some things coming down.
Turning you in.
This is a conspiracy going on over here. So he says, I'm warning you right now. Be careful, because if they get you onto their side, if they convince you, you're also going to fall into the trap with them. You're going to wind up go for destruction like they are. This was the idea, So he told them, be very, very careful. So you know what he did? After warning him, he also did like a spiritual thing over here. What did he do? He blessed him. He prayed for him, and he also changed his name. Why is that? Because until that point, his name was not Yoshua. His name was Hoshea, right?
Right.
Hoshea was his name,
Okay.
right? And now he added one yud to the name. So instead of being Hoshea, he made it Yehoshua, right? That's what he did, right? So why did he do that? This was like to strengthen his name, that he should have strength of character to resist the plan of the spies. This was the idea.
How they get
Change his name.
How do they get this term Yahweh then?
No, this is from some idiots, some morons.
The morons
These are losers. These people are losers. These are people who they think that they know something about religion, and then they try to make up all kinds of things.
Try to take over?
These are, little-minded people, with little minds and little plans. We're doing the middle of Torah, Bitul Torah, Mechila. Don't bother us now. Laila Tov. Kol Tov. So now, continue what we said, that Moshe Rabbeinu prayed for Yehoshua. He told them, please, don't fall into this mess.
I never knew that these two characters crossed paths.
Well, Yoshua was the main Talmud of Moshe Rabbeinu.
It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Isn't it in the Dead Sea Scrolls that they lived in?
Joshua, Joshua. Maybe I have to tell you the English version of the name.
You're talking about
Joshua.
our
Jesus.
Huh?
You're not talking about Jesus.
No, not that loser. That's a loser. That's something else.
That's another
We're
story.
talking about our Joshua.
Joshua.
Joshua, not Jesus.
Right.
No, not that loser. No. When a person has this loser fixated in his mind, he thinks all kinds of strange things. All kinds
I
of
thought when you said Yeshua,
all
That's why I
kinds of-
said Yahweh.
oh, please.
Oh God! You guys are looking on the internet too much. You got to look more into the Bible.
No.
Okay. Anyway, right? That we said. So I know these people. I know who you're talking about. I know these losers. They're also losers. Yeah, they're also
Jehovah's
losers.
Witness.
Big losers. Okay. So as we said last week, right? That Chazal told us, if they tell you there's wisdom by the Goyim, believe them. They have wisdom. If they tell you there's Torah by them, there's no Torah by them. Don't believe it. They have no Torah by the Goyim. Whatever they tell you, all kinds of nonsense, they made it up from their own mind. So they're nuts, these people. They're the lunatics, these people. Looney Tunes. The Looney Tunes. That's what they are. They have no Torah. They have nothing. They have zero.
think they do.
They think, okay, let them think, Let them keep busy.
Have you sent them already?
You want to get them, send them, right? So what happens like now? That they started to move. When was the day that they left? This was also very significant, right? The day that they went for their mission was Rosh Chodesh Tammuz,
Rosh Chodesh.
which is coming up very soon, right? In about 2 weeks, right? Less than 2
Is
weeks.
that when we're supposed to pray all day you were talking about?
No, that's something else. So Rosh Chodesh Tammuz was the day that they left. How long did this whole trek take? Spy mission, right? It took 40 days and 40 nights. That's what it says, right? So what is the significance of all this? That they came back on which day? That was, right before Tisha B'Av. Yeah. So what does that mean, right? They brought a bad report about the land of Israel, and they cried. They made the whole nation cry. And this is the reason why on Tisha B'Av we still cry until this day. You know? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this was part of the punishment that He gave us for this sin of the spies. Because you cried for no reason, because you didn't have faith in me, I'm going to give you now a good reason to cry every year.
Tisha B'Av.
That's it. That's the idea. You know what I mean? So therefore, right, this lack of faith that the spies had, we're suffering for that until this day. Every Tisha B'Av, this is the reason why we fast and we cry, we have destruction of the temple. Why is that? Because of lack of faith. Everything is lack of faith. Why don't you believe, right, what God tells you? When God tells you it's good, that means it's good.
Well,
Don't try to play games. You know, there's a story brought in the Talmud similar to this. You know what they say in the Talmud? Something unbelievable. They say, right, that Rabbi Yochanan one day was sitting and extrapolating a certain pasuk, a certain verse from the Bible. So it says over there in the verse that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to make, when the Geulah comes, when the redemption comes, who's going to, as we said, right, who's going to build the Beit HaMikdash? Hashem will bring down the Beit HaMikdash from Shamayim. And also the whole Jerusalem He's going to build. He Himself will build the whole city.
okay.
It's not going to be built by man. This is the idea, you know? So what does that mean? When God builds something, it's not like we build. We build it with stone, with mortar, you know, with cement, all kinds of things like this, right? We take bricks and all kinds of things. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't build that way. When God builds something, it's on a much grander scale. So what did Rabbi Yochanan say, right? It's destined to be one day, Kadosh Baruch Hu will build Jerusalem, and He's going to surround all of Jerusalem with precious stones, gems.
Yes.
It's going to be totally built. The whole structure of Jerusalem is going to be built with precious gems.
Are they doing that now?
Can you imagine something like that?
Are they doing that
In your dreams, right? In my dreams. Yeah, in our dreams, right? They're doing that now. They don't even have money to build. They don't even have money to build a regular structure. You know what I mean? So the Rabbi Yochanan was saying this, right? He's going to build. The Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to build the city like that, all precious stones and gems. So there was one wise guy over there. He probably was from the spies. Also, this guy, reincarnation of those guys. So he was like chuckling, in the background. He says, Why was he chuckling? He said, "What? God is gonna bring down stones from the heavens and build Jerusalem?" He says, "That sounds a little bit far fetched. It sounds like Twilight Zone. This kind of stuff. What is this business? Right?" So he chuckled a little bit. So what happened was, right, that night came to him a dream. That guy who chuckled. So they show him in the dream like this, right? Angels coming down from heaven and building the wall around Jerusalem with precious gems. You know what I mean? They show him this in a dream. Can you imagine? So he wakes up in the morning, says, "Wow, what was that? Oh wow! It sounds just like what the rabbi was talking about right in the lecture that he was giving. About this pasuk, about this verse." So next day he comes back to Rabbi Yochanan, right? And he tells the rabbi, he says, "Wow!" He says, "Chazakul Baruch." He tells the rabbi, "Yesher Koach." He says, "Whatever you said last night, you know what? It must be true. You know why? Because I saw exactly the same thing in a dream." So Rabbi Yochanan hears this guy, saying this, and he was shocked by this. What was he shocked about? Interesting, right? You know why he was shocked? Because Rabbi Yochanan, by the way, if you know about who he was, this guy was a dangerous guy. What does that mean? If you get on his bad side,
Kill you?
he could finish you off. He was a dangerous man. What does that mean? He was a great scholar, but that's somebody you don't mess with. You know what I mean? Somebody you don't mess with this guy.
Mafia.
So no, not mafia. That'll do, right? So what happens like this, right? Comes Rabbi Yochanan. They say he had very long eyebrows.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Wow.
so they were so long, they used to cover his eyes. Like his eyes were like covered with the eyebrows.
Boy.
So what he would do is, if he wanted to see something with clarity, right? To see clarity, you know what he would do? He had like a pair of tweezers in his pocket. He would pull it out and lift up his eyebrows. If you wanted to see something very,
How did they detail all this stuff?
it's history, how can I tell you?
Was the guy actually sitting there watching him pull up his
This is one of the famous rabbis, by the way, of the Talmud. One of the great rabbis of the
Don't
Talmud.
look at him the wrong way.
So right, so what happened was he said to this disciple, this guy who was listening to the lecture, he says, what? He says, until they showed you the dream last night, you didn't believe what I told you? What, you thought it was a fantasy? You think I'm talking fantasy world? So he opened up, he took his tweezers and lifted up his eyebrows. He looked at this guy. They say, right, one look he gave him, and the guy dropped dead. Right there, dropped dead right there. So what was the reason why he did this to this guy? What was the idea? By the way, these rabbis from the Talmud, they were so powerful, they could just look at somebody and finish him. One eye look of the eye, that's it, finished, right? That's it. If they get angry, these people angry. They had such power of the Torah because they knew the whole Torah from A to Z. A person who knows Torah like that with such clarity, whatever he says, it comes true. Whatever he thinks even without saying it. And it comes true right away, without any delay.
That's why I'm asking, Rabbi, always bless us.
So now, right, comes the very, very similar story, by the way, with my rabbi. To be honest with you, with my rabbi, Maran Rosh Hashanah, because he had such great knowledge in Torah, whatever he would say would come true. That's the way it was. There's two stories, that I can tell you. These are two true stories. We're talking about 20 years ago. We're not talking about 2,000 years ago, from the Talmud. What happened was that they say, one time, this actually we saw with our own eyes, right? What happened was that, you remember Arik Sharon? You remember Arik? The one who did the evacuation of Gush Katif, right? Al Gaza Strip. We're suffering from that until this day, by the way. So, right, they say that this was very angering the people in Israel. The people were very incensed by him, that he was willing to evacuate the Jews from there, to give the land to the Arabs, these killers, these murderers. So what happened was that the rabbi was giving a lecture at night, and this was televised on satellite TV. So everybody saw that. It was also on the radio. This show, this Torah show, right? It was on Saturday night, right after Shabbat, and I used to go there. I used to go personally there, because it was right next to my house. So I used to go in and drop in. So I, usually would never miss it because this was considered to be like the biggest attraction in Israel. This lecture, the whole world was listening to it. Even, by the way, internationally, they had transmissions in Paris, and even in Iran they had. Can you imagine? Even in Iran, they had the rabbi speaking over their satellite pickup. They had, and the authorities allow that, by the way, over there. You know why? Because it's Torah. They like religion. You see, they don't like Zionism, but religion they like. You understand? They have this dichotomy. These nutcases over there, they are, but they don't mind that there's religion. They want religion. What they don't want is Zionism, because they don't believe in that.
What do you think of Zionism?
That's a different story. That's a different lecture, right? About talk about that. So it happens like this, right? So he was supposed to evacuate the, Gush Katif. You know what I mean? And the rabbi was very troubled by this. And they were also part of the government at that time. So what happened was, right? They objected. The rabbi didn't agree to this. He said, "How can you just evacuate like that? There's no plans. There's no peace treaty. No nothing. Just evacuation for no reason." He said, "This is crazy. It's like suicide." But Sharon wouldn't listen. Sharon was very stubborn. For some reason, he got this thing into his head. And this guy was very strong. Sharon. He was a stubborn guy. Once he decided something, that was it, right? You couldn't do anything with this guy. He was like iron-fisted person. Very strong person. So what happened was, right, that the rabbi said, look what he's doing and this and that, and how he did this and whatever. So he says, I hope something will happen to save these Jews. He says, I hope that God will come and strike him. And something will happen. He'll die or something, whatever. That's what he said. Can you imagine? 2 weeks later, he got a stroke. He became right. Went into a coma. That was it. Once the rabbi cursed him, finished him off. That was it, right? That was the end of Sharon's career. There's also another story which I was told by one of the rabbis here in Queens. Unbelievable story, true story. Right? They say that there was a certain lady who was left by her husband, and she refused to give her a get. Like abandoned her. There are people like this. Some men who make a lot of trouble for the women. Instead of giving them a divorce, they just leave them for hanging for years, to make them suffer and to do all kinds of things like this. To make them, to coerce them into paying money, all kinds of issues like this. There are men like this who have a sick head. So what happens is, right, that this guy refused to give a get to his wife, so he ran off. He went out to a different country. They couldn't catch up to him. They didn't know where he was, right? So what happens is, right, that they come to the rabbi, and the rabbi told them, they said, what can I do? How can I free her up to get married? Her husband is still alive. There's nothing I can do. Unless the guy will come and write a get, nothing I can do for this guy. So what happens is, right, that so once they heard the rabbi say that, they devised like a plan, these guys, this family. This family was like, wishy-washy, flimsy, whatever, flimsy family. So what happened was, they said, you know what we'll do? We'll you know what they did? They made some kind of a false report, right, that the guy died. You know what I mean? And they put like false witnesses, they make some kind of a false document. Death certificate. He died. He was in Europe somewhere. He died over there. And we have the certificate from the authorities. So they made a phony, certificate. You know what I mean? Qalbi. So they brought it to the rabbi. They said, look, we have a certificate. The guy's dead.
Set her free.
You know what I mean? That was the idea, right? So the rabbi, said, oh, the guy's dead. So he says, okay, so I'll write you a letter. Right? You can't really write a get because the guy's dead. You can only write the get when he's alive. You know what I mean? But I'll write you a letter which allows you to remarry. But that's the idea, permission, So he wrote the letter, and he writes with his pen, Rabbi. He says, this, right, Ploni Almoni, right, Joe Schmo, right, is dead. That's it, dead. So they say right after he wrote that he's dead, he died. The guy really died. He really died. Can you imagine? This is exactly what happened, right? So there are stories like this. There's all kinds of stories like that. Anyway, the point is, right, that coming back to what we said. So these spies now, right, want to go and make a false report like this on Eretz Israel. So what they did was they started to go into the land. They say, right, how did they start? Where did they start out? They started out from the southeast side, which was from the side that they were coming from Egypt, right, southeast, and they went to the southern border of Eretz Israel. They cut through the southern border, the Negev, right, which is the bad part of Eretz Israel, by the way. You know why? Because that area is not so fertile. It's like desert. It's right, very arid land. If you ever driven through there, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's all desert there. It's all desert, right? When you go, let's say you want to go from Jerusalem, right, and you want to go to Elat, so you have to go through that big desert there, So it's unbelievable. It's like all dry around you, it's desolate land, It's unbelievable how desolate it is over there. So they went through that place. They went through, and they went until the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and then they headed northward, right? So they crisscrossed it, first this way, and they went up right on the beach, on the shore. Okay. They went all the way up on the shore until the northernmost part of Eretz Israel, right, which is very, very far. It's like almost in Syria there. It's a big trek. Yeah, it's Lebanon. Yeah. Even beyond Lebanon. They say, right, that the northernmost part of Eretz Israel, it even goes into Turkey. It's very long. It's much longer than we have today. There's more land there that we don't have today. It's a part of Turkey, a part of Lebanon, and as you said, right, there's all kinds of lands there that belong to us, really. Anyway, right, this took them 40 days. They say, by the way, it really should have taken them much longer. Should have taken them much longer than that. So then why did it take only 40 days? They say Kadosh Baruch Hu, right, made them go faster. He gave them like assistance. He gave them like a push, Why? because he wanted them to come back exactly on Tisha B'Av, right? Because that should be the day it's going to be fixed for the crying. So since he had a schedule, right? So he made them come back exactly that day. This was the idea. You know what I mean?
Give them the win.
He gave it right exactly. There was a wind behind them. So what did these guys do? You know, you can say that in a sense. You know what I mean? Not exactly, but there's an element of that. Yeah, there is an element like that. Yes, you know, in the sense that way. Meaning what? This is a plan from God. It's God's plan. You know, in the end, even though He doesn't choose that, He allows you to choose, but He knows what's going to be. You know what I mean? He knows the future, so He knows it's going to happen. You know, there's the dichotomy, right? On the one hand, God knows what's going to be. On the other hand, you have free choice, but He knows what you're going to choose. Right? This contradiction. The Rambam talks about this, by the way, this contradiction. It's like certain philosophy. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Whatever. Okay, so the point is like this, right? They went up, and everywhere they went, by the way, you know, this was unbelievable. What did they find? The same thing everywhere they went when they went. What did they find? Everywhere they go, there's a funeral going on. You know? Everywhere. Levaya, you know, lo aleinu. Taking out, you know, the coffin, you know, crying, you know, beating, you know. Who was there? Goyim were there, you know, these Canaanim. These people, you know, like, you know, Schwarzes, you know. That's what they were, yeah. You know, they're crying, beating the chest, mourning. Everywhere they go, there's mourning going on, right? They said, by God, you know, this must be a sign that this land is like kills people, you know. It's a very dangerous land. People die all the time. You know, maybe some kind of a Bermuda Triangle over there, you know, some kind of you know, something, it's possessed. You know, some kind of possessed land they have with it. They said they always try to look at the negative of everything. Right? That was the idea. Since their whole idea was to find something negative, they're always looking at the minus. You know, the half glass which is empty. This was the idea. They kept going on with this, right? To find this problem, to find that problem. So what happens is that in the end, right, they find also another problem, which is what? That the people over there were giants, you know, very big, giant people, mighty people. Like, you know, you wouldn't even want to, like, forget about fighting with a guy. You'd be like, you know, when you see him cross the street, you know what I mean? You cross over to the other side just to make sure everything is okay. This is the kind of people that were there, you know what I mean? Very mighty people. All of them giants and tall and muscular, you know, and look like warriors. You don't want to mess with these people, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like, forget about it. They say, by the way, that, you know, in terms of might, the Jews are mighty people. They're strong people, you know? They say there's only one nation who's stronger than the Jews. This was them, right? The Amorites.
Giants?
The Amorites were stronger than the Jews were, you know, in terms of physical strength. So therefore, right, there was something to see. But also, as you said, right, Mark, there was also giants over there. Mm-hmm. These giants were left over from the original giants that, you know, that came, right? Exactly, from that era, right? Children of those giants and so forth and so on, grandchildren and so forth. There was a few of them left, and they were all there in that area, more or less, right? So what does that mean? They passed by and they saw, right, these giants. And these giants were so large, right? They used to look at them, these spies, and think that they're like grasshoppers, you know? That's what they were so small. Like, oh, there's some kind of grasshopper over there going in the field, you know? They didn't even see that human beings. They were so large. So when they saw these giants, they said, my God, you know, who can make war with these mighty people here? The Amorites are mighty. These giants are mighty. Who are we to come in, right, and play with these people? This is dangerous business, you know? Physically speaking, they're stronger than we are. We don't have a chance by them. You know, we're also mighty, but we don't compare to them.
Hey, girlie, move
You know
your
what I
sheep.
That's the idea. Wow. So in other words, they looked for everything negative. Also, then they pulled another stunt, right? Which was what? They saw the fruits of the land over there. You know, because Moshe Rabbeinu told them, bring back some of the fruits we want to see, right?
Dates.
Give us an example, right? Sample. Bring us some samples. Nice fruits, delicious fruits, sweet fruits, whatever. Bring. So what did they do? They found over there that all the fruits were like extremely, like large. You know, like looked like mutated fruits. You know, that were made by genetic engineering. You know what I mean? Like huge and large. We're talking about like
Dinosaurs.
one, like, you know, they brought back basically three types of fruits. They brought a cluster of grapes. Okay. How large was this cluster, by the way? They say it was so large, they needed like two people to carry on their shoulders with a stick, you know, to hold one cluster of grapes. Can you imagine? That's how big it was.
The paintings.
Unbelievable. Yeah, those paintings. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
like this.
yeah. You know? So what does that mean? The fruits of Eretz Israel were like extremely large and also very sweet and beautiful, you know? The best fruits you can ever taste. That's the way it was. Until this day, by the way, the best fruits are over there, you know? So what happened was, right, that they took on their shoulders, and there was also two other fruits they took, right? One date they took, and one fig, and they were also huge. So they had to carry on their shoulders as well, these things with sticks and all kinds of stuff. They took those three fruits. What was the reason why they took that fruit, right? Because they wanted to bring this as like evidence of what they said, right? Exhibit A, right? What does that mean? Just like these fruits are extremely large and giant, people are also the same way. You know what I mean? That was their Exhibit A, Exhibit B, right? Exhibit C. They wanted to. That was the whole thing. They wanted to foil the whole.
It's a big place.
Right. So they wanted to scare them. Also, when they came back, they told them another thing. They said, you know what? First of all, the people are dying over there, death left and right. All they do is die. The land is very dangerous. It kills people. The people are very mighty, big warriors, and they're much larger than we are physically. We have no chance by them. If we try to go and hit the guy, we'll be hitting his, if we're lucky, we'll hit his heel. We'll tap his heel. What's the point of fighting with somebody like that? What are you gonna do with him? How are you gonna bring this guy down? What kind of chance do you have? They also said, right, another thing. They said we found over there the most dangerous people. They said we found also Amalek. Amalek was also there in the south. They were there. It's true, by the way. Amalek, right? So why did they say Amalek? They wanted to mention, right, because Amalek was the one who attacked them first when they came out to the desert. So they wanted to scare them, and they said, oh, there's Amalek over there. Watch out, it's going to be dangerous. You know what I mean? And we have the Amorites over there who are giant people, very strong, very mighty. We have no chance against these people. That's what they said.
But they said whatever they saw.
Right, but you know what it is, right? That now let's look at the reality.
It's not what you say; it's how you say it.
So now let's look at the reality of what's going on, right? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to them, "You foolish spies, right? All the things that I showed you over there in Eretz Israel, I showed you. I did all these things for your own good. What does that mean? The fact that there was funerals going on everywhere, it's not because the land kills the people. It's because I wanted them to be busy with other things and not notice you. I did it as a favor for you, and you come and look at the negative side. This is the way it is, People who have this twisted mind, they have a warped sense of reality.
It was also fear mongering.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, exactly. That was their intention, to scare them. That's what it was. So they said, right? But HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "Oh, I did all. These were all favors that I did for you. What are you talking about? I did for you all these favors. Also, right, the fact that they looked at you and you were so small, they didn't notice that you're there. So I did all these things I did for you in order to make your trek easy. Nobody talked to you. Nobody noticed you. They were all busy with funerals all the time. This was the best thing I could give you, and you're looking at the negative side. That's what it is. Every time in prison, by the way, it's always your mentality. We discussed this right before. How do you look at something? When you look at something, are you looking at the positive or negative? You can see two people see the same thing, but they judge it in a different way. This is the idea.
I always look at the negative. Only the negative.
So when they came back after 40 days, right? The only people who really looked at the positive was Yoshua ben Nun and Caleb ben Yefuneh. Right? These were the two of the spies. Caleb was from Yehuda. Yoshua was from Yosef, from Ephraim. These were the only ones. So what happened was that they came, right, and they told people like this: there's giants, there's dangerous, this and that. We have no chance with them. By the way, they even said they insulted God also. They insulted Hashem. You know what they said, right? They said, okay, God is with us. It's true. We're like chosen people. You know what I mean? But he says even God can't beat these people. They're so strong. That's what they said. Can you imagine? Even God can't beat them.
That's annoying.
You know what I mean? So once Hashem heard these things, so this is it. These people are like totally making the people rebel. They're causing a rebellion over here. It's some kind of coup they're trying to perform. This was this video. So people started to cry. Once they heard that, they got emotional.
What good things did Yeshua see? And the other guy.
They all saw the same things. They were all going together.
How did they interpret it?
So now, right, King Caleb, he tried to defend Moshe Rabbeinu, tried to defend it. They said, no, we saw everything that's going on there, and everything is good. He says, don't worry. He says, the truth is that they have no chance against us. That's what Caleb told them. Why? Look how he looked at it, right? He looked at it as a Jew, as a religious man. You know what I mean? These people looking at it, just laws of nature. They're stronger, they're bigger, they're larger. They have bigger muscles. Biceps, triceps. Kinds of things.
Bigger fruit.
Bodybuilding. Shoulders, back. all kinds of stuff. They're looking at the size, sizing them up in terms of their size. He looks like a pit bull. You know what I mean? Looks like this, looks like that. Dangerous guy. But Caleb said to them very simply, they said, listen, he says, they have no chance against us. What, you think a large giant man can beat God? God is with us. Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. He made miracles for us. Don't you see all the miracles that Hashem made already? He split the sea, right? He gave the 10 plagues, all these things, right? He made us wealthy. He gave us everything that we need. We have miracles going on all the time, clouds of glory, this and that. So still, you have doubts about that. That's what Caleb tried to say. But he said, even more than he said that, right? Which is what? He said the truth is, he says, you know what? He says their biggest protection that they have, their biggest protection is already lost. They lost it, right? They have no protection anymore. In other words, whatever was defending them over there, the real defense that they had, it's gone. It's lost. What was he referring to? You know what he's referring to? They say, right, that who was living over there with them at that time? Eov was living with them, right? Eov was also part of that, right, country. You understand? So who was Eov? Eov was a big tzaddik. You understand? As we discussed about Eov before, right? The one who was afflicted with suffering, all these things. We talked about that, right? Yeah. This guy, right? You know what I'm talking about. So Eov, right? They call it in English. They call it job. Get a job, buddy. Get a job, right? Job, right? Whatever they call him, Job. Okay, whatever. So this guy, right, was a big tzaddik. So they say, right, what was really defending them over there? Not their might, physical prowess, and all this. Who cares about that? Hashem doesn't care about that, right? He's like, for him, it's like one big domino effect, He just snaps his finger like this, pushes them down, trickle down, it just brings down the whole thing. There's bro who doesn't care about these things. What does he care about? Their might, their physical prowess, their might, their war strategies. Who cares about that? For him, that's nothing. It's zero. You know what I mean? So Caleb said, you know what? Eov died. They were having a funeral also for Eov. As we said, right? They were having funerals. This was the biggest funeral, right? When a big tzaddik dies like this, everybody comes to his funeral. People are really sad. So he says, this was what was defending them. That's it. Their defense shield is finished. There's nothing to defend them anymore. It's finished, So what is he looking at? He's looking at the religious side, the spiritual side. You know what I mean? This is the way to look at things, by the way. A person should look at things according to the Dat Torah. What does that mean? The knowledge of Torah, the philosophy of Torah, right? The approach of Torah. When you look at things just in physical terms, you're going to come up with the wrong prognosis. You know what I mean? This is the way it is. That's why you need, by the way, you should know that the foolish people, what do they say, right? They say, they say the ignorant people should decide what has to be done, how the community should be run. Who should decide about these things? The Chachamim should decide. The Talmidei Chachamim should decide. They should be the leaders of the community. Decide things should be done. Because they know, according to Torah, they decide. They don't decide according to physical, just statistics. This and that, how much we have here, how much we have over there. You can't look at just everything dry. You have to have also, right, the most important thing is to have that Torah. Right, the wisdom of the Torah, to decide these things. Because people who have wisdom of Torah, the real wisdom of Torah, they know, what's going on, how things are going to be. Right? They say, Chacham ena berosho. You know what that means? A person who's wise, he knows how to look ahead into the future. Why is that? Because he knows, right? If you do this, it's going to cause that. If you do this, it's going to cause that. A person who has real wisdom of the Torah, that's how he thinks. So here also, Caleb was the only one, Yoshua and Caleb, who defended, right? That was the idea. They say, by the way, Caleb, he also himself was worried that this conspiracy of the spies was going to pollute his heart. He wasn't sure of himself. Maybe they're also going to convince me. They're going to corrupt me too. So you know what he did? In order to avoid this, right? As we said, Moshe Rabbeinu, he gave a blessing to Yoshua, he changed his name, everything. Okay, but Caleb, he didn't get any of these things, right? He wasn't the Zocher to get all these blessings from Moshe Rabbeinu. All these things, these fixes, right? So what did he do? He said, I have to strengthen myself, Who knows? Maybe I also going to fall into this trap. So you know what he did? When they were going in Eretz Israel, he stopped off. He made a pit stop over there. Right? Where did he stop off? When they passed by Hebron, which was in the south also, right? He stopped off over there, and he went to the Marat HaMachpelah, where the forefathers are buried, right? Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov Avinu. He passed by over there, and he went and he bowed down and he prayed, right? He prayed to them that they should help him to avoid the conspiracy of the spies. So this is what strengthened him, He went and did this. They say, by the way, this is a very good thing. If a person happens to be in the area of the place where there's tzaddikim over there buried, you should go over there, and pray, because they can help you with all kinds of things. This is the idea, right? A person should do that. So this is exactly what he did. He went over there and he prayed, and this is how he was able to come out as a winner, as a victor over here. So what happened was that they all started to cry. They didn't believe Kalev. The people were, you know how it is. Most people are usually, they go with the stream. You know what I mean? It's very hard to go against the stream when you have the majority of people who are crying and fibbing and this and that and complaining and whining. So what happens? It affects everybody. It's like it's contagious. So once they started to cry, everybody started to cry. Everybody, oh, this family, that family, this tribe, that tribe, everybody's crying. So what happened was, right, that they were not able to convince them. So once Kadosh Baruch Hu saw this, he came down, right, and he made order over there. He said, "What's going on, right, with these people? What are they doing to me? They're causing a rebellion against me." So what they said, these people, right? They said once they got this whole conspiracy moving along, they said, "You know what? Let's elect a different leader, and let's go back, right? Go back to Mitzrayim. Forget about this." Right? Exactly. By the way, they say the Chazal when they said to make a leader, what were they really talking about? Not a president. They were talking about Avodah Zarah, to make Avodah Zarah again, right? Same thing as they did before, right? Let's make Avodah Zarah and go back to Mitzrayim, right? Let's backtrack, right? To revert to our old ways. That was the idea. And they wanted that was their life expectancy. That's what they expected to do in their life. That was their habit. It was habitual. For them to do idolatry was a habit. It's habits. They say, right? Habits die hard. You know what I mean? Once a person gets used to something. That's how they grew up. It's like, our forefathers, how it is, right? They came from a communist country, right? So what does that mean? When you live in a communist country, that means that by definition you're a faithless person, because that's how they raise you over there. From first grade until you grow up, they tell you no faith, no God, no religion, no Bible, nothing. Just right. That's it. That's the idea, right? Equality, right? Right. Fake equality, right? That's the idea. Yeah, for sure. That's what they were doing. They were steeped in idolatry over there. Steeped. Right? They were steeped. Yeah, even the Jews. They were totally polluted with idolatry. So you know what it is. By the way, you see, with these people who came from there, they grew up there. We were more fortunate. We didn't grow up over there. But the people who did, they can't get that pollution out of their, that polluted approach to life. They can't get it out of their system. They grew up that way. Once they pollute you like that, there's not much you can do. There's only so far you can go. You know what I mean? It's true. What can you do? They're like, that's why we call them, Tinok Shenishba. You know what that means? It's like they were like kidnapped by Gentiles and raised, as heathens. That's the way it is. It's not even their fault somehow. You know what I mean? So you can't judge these people the way you judge other people. So that's exactly what those people were doing. They were trying to go back, trying to revert.
A lot of the Russian Jews that I know are not even circumcised.
True. We know about that. Yeah. We know about that, right? Yeah, we know. But this is one of the big challenges that a person has to say to himself. Listen, my parents didn't circumcise me. I'm gonna make a plan and I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna call up the right hospital, get some anesthesia. Right, I'm gonna bring a mohel over there, anesthesia, everything. You have to do anesthesia because when you're growing up, it's very painful. So whatever it is. You do it. It's a one-time job. You know what I mean? That's it. You're done. That's it. What can I do? You gotta. That's the way it is.
In 1 week, you're cured.
That's it. It's a few days. What can you do? It hurts. They say right that what it's compared to? It's like when a person has a tooth that needs to be pulled out, right? Like right. So he's on the one hand it hurts him. On the other hand, it's like he's afraid to pull it out because it's going to hurt more. But the only reason that will come to him once he pulls it out is to go to the dentist. Get it out already. Get it out already. Just get it out. That's the only way it's going to save you. That's the idea. Yeah, that's the idea. Same thing over here.
Really?
Who had a tooth pulled out? Who had a tooth?
Which one?
Wisdom tooth.
Oh, wow.
I don't have.
I did that too. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I did that too. Yeah.
I don't have any wisdom teeth. You know that?
I have no teeth.
You never had any wisdom?
No. I never is.
You're lucky.
Yeah. I never had any wisdom teeth.
You're fortunate. What can I tell you?
It's coming.
I have 2 molars. 2 and 2. I have 28 teeth.
So anyway, that's what we find is that these people were killed in the end. Kadosh Baruch Hu, right, plagued them, these spies, and they all went their way right to the netherworld.
No, I won't.
took him, the rabbi would walk and he came to the mall.
We'll manage. Jimmy.
Hashem on Thursday, Rabbi?
God bless. All the best.
Thank you.
So that's the right, more or less the idea of the spies. But what happened was, right, that unfortunately this was a straw that broke the camel's back, as they say, right? This was what it was. What does that mean? That this was not the first impropriety that the Jews, right, did in the desert. There was the calf, there was the complaints, there was the issues over here, this, all kinds of rivalries and strife going on against Moshe Rabbeinu, complaining against him. So this was when Hashem decided, he said, listen, you guys, this time you went too far. There's a limit.
For this you shall taste bitter waters.
Right? Here, there's a point of no return over here. There's no way to go back anymore. Right? Once I see that you're so callous like that, such a callous people, that you have no faith in me. You have no faith in my providence. You have no faith in my promises, right? So what I'm going to do to you? He says, very simple. Whatever you were crying about now, what are you really crying about, right? You were crying that what? That, these mighty people over there in Eretz Israel, they're going to kill us, and our children are going to be killed and destroyed, and we have no chance to beat them. So he said, you know what I'm going to do? Just like you were saying, that you were complaining about this, I'm going to do to you the same thing. What does that mean? I'm going to kill you. What does that mean? All the people who were between the age of 20 and 60, these are the people who are going to the army, all of them had to die in the desert now. This was a decree, right? They had to wait 40 years in the desert until everybody from that generation died. Every year, they say, by the way, it was an amazing thing that how would these people die? They had to dig their own grave. They were in the desert, right? And there was one day out of the year where they were supposed to die. So what happened was that they had to dig their own grave. Whoever was at that age now to go, right? There was a certain age they were supposed to die. So once they reached that age, the age of 60, right? They had to dig their own grave and wait there until God decided to kill them or not. So they had to dig their own grave and they were buried. That's the idea. This is how it happened. So every year this went on for 40 years until all the people were consumed, right? The age of 20 and 50, 60, from the age of 20 and 60, everybody had to die. Nobody from that generation that left Egypt went into Eretz Israel. They all died in the desert because of this sin, right, which broke the camel's back. This is the idea.
Joshua.
The only ones that
the people across the river.
The only ones that went in, right, was who? Yoshua ben Nun and Caleb ben Yefuneh. Why? Because these are the ones that didn't go with the council of the spies. All the other ones, right, were corrupted from the spies. They knew how to, right, corrupt them, and therefore they all had to die in the desert. This was the idea,
The Dead Sea Scrolls, what was that written in?
As we described also before, right, the idea is that also there was another group that didn't die. You know who that was? The Levites, right, as we said. Since the Levites were not counted with that census that was done for the Jews, they were counted in a separate census, so therefore they say, right, that all the Levites did not die. Why is that? Because the Levites also, right, were loyal to God, and they didn't participate in these ridiculous, conspiracy theories, and therefore they also lived, and they went into Eretz Israel. Even though, right, all that generation had to die, the Levites were excluded from that. Right, as we see, right, whoever is loyal to Hashem gets rewarded for that, right? Gets rewarded for his loyalty, right? Just like, you see, right, Trump, you see, right, the president, people like this, they always reward the ones that are loyal to them. If you get if you show loyalty to the president, he'll promote you, he'll give you a better job. You get nice cushy promotions. God willing, God willing, it's all in God's hands. What can I tell you? So things it's looking better, looking good. So if Trump promotes you for being good to him, right? Even by the way, he even made mistakes, regarding this Trump. He promoted also people who were loyal to him, but they were like devious, very sneaky people, like this guy Bannon, this guy, troublemaker, big troublemaker.
Do you think that Tillerson was a backstabber?
You know what it is with the people like that? The problem with him was that he had his own agenda. He didn't want to follow the agenda of Trump. He had his own agenda. He thought he was a president. When you think like that, you know what it is, right? Trump will tell you, right? 2 words. You're. That's what it goes.
Bye.
That's his favorite hobby, right? Besides playing golf, firing people, right? It's the number 2 hobby that.
Tillerson.
He's gonna run with Haley. Haley will be the
Right.
first woman vice president,
Uh,
and that's how he's gonna win. And everybody's
But,
gonna vote for him.
Rabbi, what do you think of this new woman that they discovered now that claims that the rape? Yeah.
God bless them. What can I tell you?
SBS.
So now, coming to what we said, right? That this decree was made for the desert for 40 years, and also all throughout the generations. What does that mean? That the reason why we have these sad days, those 3 weeks, right, that we have,
Yeah.
from the 17th of Tammuz until Tisha B'Av, is because of the mourning of what happened, right? That it was this whole thing was brought about. This was a source of the problem. This was the
When
root.
does Tisha B'Av begin, Rabbi?
This is going to be in about 50 days from now.
Oh,
Right?
50
50 days, yes. In the heat of summer, in the dead of the summer. That's when it comes. This
August.
Tisha B'Av, right? So the Kadosh Baruch Hu said, just like you cried over here in Tisha B'Av, and you cried for no reason, you're going to be crying all throughout the generations like that, right? This is your punishment. This is one of the punishments you're going to get. So this punishment, right, is not going to be atoned for a long, long time. It's going to go with you for many, 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 many years until the time the Mashiach comes, right? Until then, you're going to have to suffer from this. Same thing, by the way, goes according for the calf, the golden calf. They say that every punishment that the Jews get throughout the generations also has a little punishment for the golden calf that they made. Why is that? Because the sin was so great, the golden calf sin was so great, it has to be divided up into different punishments, right? Installments, like a payment plan. You understand? You get installments every time something bad happens in the Jewish people, God forbid. There's also installment that comes from the golden calf. Why? Because it was Avodah Zarah, you know what I mean? We see over there, by the way, the severity of Avodah Zarah, how severe it is. A person worships, worships all kinds of deities, all kinds of things like this. For the Jewish people, this is a deal breaker, you know what I mean? If you get into that stuff, right? They say, by the way, the person who gets into Avodah Zarah is very hard to get out also. Once a person starts to believe in that heresy and all that kind of stuff, his heart becomes polluted with that, And it's very hard to get out of that. It's like a comfort zone he has, with that thing. It's a false comfort. And now, to get out of it, it's very, very difficult. They say some people even die because of that. They try to get out of that. It's very difficult. It's like, you have to go through hell to get out of that thing. If you're lucky, you'll survive. So that's what we're saying, Rabbi. Also, right, regarding okay, I guess we'll stop here. There's more to discuss, but it's late, so I'll let you go. Thanks for coming. God bless.
Thank you, Rabbi.
And
I wanted to ask
safe
you
trip.
Is it appropriate